My boyfriend proposed. Everyone is happy. Photos, the ring. But inside, I'm screaming, no. Yet I said, yes. I'm afraid of losing him. Afraid of being alone. And now I'm trapped in a situation with no way out. I said yes to my boyfriend's proposal, but deep down I was screaming no. Everyone clapped, cheered, and took photos of us. My family was crying tears of joy. His friends opened champagne. On Instagram, it looked like a perfect fairy tale moment. But inside, my heart sank like a stone. I smiled for the pictures, I kissed him for the videos, and I played the role of the happiest woman alive. But the truth is, the second that ring slid onto my finger, I felt like I had stepped into a prison I had built myself. To explain how I got here, I need to rewind a bit. We've been dating for almost 4 years. He's not a bad guy, actually, he's wonderful on paper. Stable job, kind personality, he never forgets to bring me coffee in the morning, he calls my mom on her birthday, he even laughs at my dad's terrible jokes. Everyone says I hit the jackpot. And honestly, I wanted to believe that too. But somewhere along the way, the spark that once set my stomach on fire turned into this dull ache of routine. I can't even pinpoint the exact moment it happened. Maybe after the first year, maybe after we moved in together. But lately, when he touches me, I don't feel butterflies anymore. I just feel nothing. Here's the part that makes me feel like the villain. I didn't say yes because I wanted to marry him. I said yes because I was terrified of what would happen if I didn't. My best friend just got engaged. My younger cousin is already pregnant with her second kid. My mom keeps dropping hints about wanting grandkids before she gets too old. And then there's me, 26, still figuring out what I even want from life, let alone from love. The pressure was like this constant weight on my chest. And when he got down on one knee, surrounded by all our friends and family, I swear I froze. My brain screamed, say no, you're not ready, you don't even know if you want this forever. But my mouth betrayed me. It whispered yes, before I could stop it. The days after the proposal were a blur of congratulations. My phone exploded with messages, my coworkers brought cupcakes, and every conversation started with, show us the ring. And I did what I always do. I smiled, nodded, pretended. I posted the perfect caption on Instagram, can't wait to spend forever with you. Do you know how many times I rewrote that sentence before posting it? At least 20. Because every version felt like a lie, and yet the likes and comments poured in like confetti, drowning my doubts in fake validation. For a second, I almost convinced myself I could live with the lie. But then came the night we started planning the wedding. He was so excited, pulling out Pinterest boards, talking about venues, even budgeting spreadsheets. His eyes sparkled in a way mine hadn't in years. And as I sat there nodding, pretending to be equally excited about flower arrangements and guest lists, my chest tightened until I could barely breathe. Because the more he planned, the clearer it became, this wasn't just a proposal. This was a contract I never wanted to sign. The climax. The moment that truly shattered me was when he hugged me, kissed my forehead, and said, I can't believe I get to marry my soulmate. My soulmate. He said it with such certainty, such love, and all I could think was, you're wrong. You think I'm your forever, but I don't even know who I am anymore, let alone who I want to spend forever with. It was like being cast in a play where the audience cheers for a happy ending, but the actress wants to run off stage and never come back. And yet, I still haven't told him. No one knows. To everyone else, I'm the blissful fiancé. Only I know that the engagement ring on my finger feels more like handcuffs than a promise. I'm stuck in this silent cage, smiling for everyone else while I'm screaming on the inside. So here I am, confessing anonymously to strangers because I can't say it out loud to anyone in my real life. I don't want to marry him. But I don't want to lose him either. I don't want to start over, to disappoint my family, to be the girl who broke a perfect man's heart. And so I stay, trapped, rehearsing vows I may never mean. Would you tell the truth if you were in my place? Or would you keep playing the role everyone expects you to play? I thought things couldn't get more complicated, but then they did. About a week after the engagement, my coworker, let's call her Emily, invited me out for drinks. I hadn't seen her in months, but she has this effortless energy that always makes me feel alive, the kind of spark I haven't felt with my fiancé in years. One drink turned into three, and one conversation spiraled into a confession of my own, half joking, half serious. I told her I didn't know if I wanted to get married. I said it so quietly, almost as if admitting it out loud might make it real. And she didn't gasp, she didn't scold me. She laughed softly, leaned in closer and said, "Then why the hell did you say yes?" Her question haunted me on the subway ride home. Why did I say yes? Fear. Habit. The need to belong to someone, to have someone see me as enough. I don't think I even realized how much I craved that sense of security until that night. And the truth is, I still crave it. I've built my entire adult life around avoiding loneliness, pretending that being in a couple, any couple, would fix the emptiness inside me. But now, staring at my ring on the train's reflection, I realized that maybe I didn't even know who I was outside of him. The next few days were a blur of panic disguised as routine. I went through emails, paid bills, and pretended everything was normal, but inside I was unraveling. Every time he touched me, I flinched. Every time he smiled at me, I felt like a fraud. I started lying about small things, how much I liked a particular restaurant, how excited I was about certain flowers, just to avoid admitting the truth. It's amazing how quickly little lies snowball into an avalanche of guilt. I felt like a magician performing a trick I didn't want to do, and yet I couldn't stop, because if I did, the whole illusion would collapse. And then, of course, there was the weekend trip he planned to celebrate the engagement. It was supposed to be romantic, candlelit dinners, beach walks, wine at sunset. In theory, it should have been perfect. In reality, it was torture. Every time we laughed together, I felt a pang of shame. Every time he held my hand, I wanted to pull away. And yet, when people we met on the beach complimented us on being the cutest couple ever, I smiled. I smiled and nodded and felt my stomach twist in knots. I thought, if they only knew I'm just playing a role. But the worst moment came the night before we were supposed to fly home. We were lying on the balcony, watching the stars, and he said something that made my chest tighten so much I could barely breathe. He whispered, "I can't wait to start our life together. I promise I'll make you the happiest woman alive." He meant it. He really did. And all I could do was nod, trying to swallow the lump in my throat, trying not to break down right there under the night sky. I felt like a villain in a story where everyone else is cheering for love, but I'm holding the knife behind my back. I don't even know when it started, this growing obsession with being someone else. I catch myself imagining different lives, different decisions. Sometimes I think about calling it off, confessing everything, and feeling the world explode. Other times I imagine a life where I just keep pretending so well that even I start to believe it. And the more I imagine these scenarios, the more real they feel, which is terrifying because it means I could go either way. One night, I accidentally texted Emily instead of my fiancée. It was a long, rambling message about how trapped I felt, how scared I was to ruin his life, how lonely I felt despite being engaged. I deleted it immediately, but I couldn't undo the panic that followed. What if she screenshotted it? What if someone found out? That tiny moment of almost truth made me realize how delicate this facade really is. I live in constant fear of the moment when one wrong word will tear everything down. The strangest part? He's still perfect. I can see it. I see the love in his eyes, the patience, the excitement. I know that if I truly loved him, I could be happy. But the truth is, I don't know if I can love him the way he deserves. And every day that passes, the lie grows heavier. It's like wearing a costume that fits too tightly. You can't breathe, you can't move freely, but you keep it on because taking it off would reveal the truth, and you're terrified of what people would see. Sometimes, late at night, I imagine confessing. I imagine telling him everything, seeing his face crumble, hearing him yell, or maybe just staring at me in disbelief. And then I imagine him leaving, and the house is silent, the ring is gone, and I'm left with nothing but my own choices. That's when the panic hits the hardest, when I feel like I'm teetering on the edge of a cliff I might never climb back from. So here I am, still smiling for everyone else, still planning a wedding I'm not sure I want, and still carrying this secret like a hidden weight in my chest. And the strangest, cruelest thing. I'm terrified that one day, I might get so used to the lie that I forget what it feels like to be honest. What would you do if you were me? Would you risk the heartbreak of truth, or keep living the lie that everyone expects? Things started to spiral faster than I could control. The wedding planning, which I thought would be a series of dull, routine tasks, suddenly became a minefield of emotions, lies, and tiny betrayals. Every time he asked me about the guest list, I felt a stab of panic. Who do I really want there? The truth is, I don't even know if I want me to be there. I laughed along with him when he suggested color schemes, floral arrangements, and cake flavors, but every suggestion felt like nails on a chalkboard. I would sit in the car afterward, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, and wonder how I'd gotten myself into a life I didn't choose. Then came the bridal dress shopping. I know everyone says it's supposed to be magical, the dress you've dreamed about your whole life. But for me, it was like being forced into a costume I couldn't fit into emotionally. I tried on one dress after another, all pristine and beautiful, but none of them made me feel like herself. Each mirror reflected a version of me I didn't recognize. Smiling, engaged, excited. And all I wanted to do was cry in the dressing room, alone, with no one watching, no one applauding, no one assuming I was happy. I could feel the lie growing heavier, weighing on me like an invisible sash. Things got worse when my friends started giving unsolicited advice. "You're going to be the most beautiful bride ever," one friend gushed. "Are you nervous?" another asked. I nodded, smiled, and muttered the occasional, "I can't wait." And every time, I felt a piece of myself slip away. These weren't just lies. They were little acts of self-erasure. The truth was, I didn't want to get married at all. But saying that out loud would shatter everything. His happiness, my family's dreams, my social image. And so I kept quiet. I told myself I was doing the responsible thing, even as guilt dug its claws into me. Then came the bachelor and bachelorette parties. His was harmless, filled with his friends, beers, and dumb jokes, but mine was a revelation, and a nightmare. My girlfriends, in their typical overly enthusiastic way, took me out to a bar and insisted on celebrating my freedom before married life. There was laughter, dancing, and way too many shots of tequila. And then Emily was there. She smiled at me across the crowded room, eyes sparkling with the kind of understanding I hadn't felt in years. We ended up in a quiet corner, nursing cocktails, and I spilled more than I should have. I told her about the panic, the fear, the way I felt trapped in a life that everyone wanted for me, except me. And then it happened, the moment that changed everything. I leaned back, laughing nervously, when she said softly, "Why don't you just run?" At first, I thought she meant it as a joke. But then I realized she wasn't joking. She wasn't laughing. Her eyes were serious, piercing, and the words felt like a key turning in a lock I didn't even know existed. Run. Leave. Stop pretending. And for a split second, I considered it. I imagined slipping out of the hotel room, catching the first cab out of town, leaving my ring, my life, and my fake happiness behind. My heart raced at the thought of freedom, and at the same time, terror gripped me. Could I really abandon everything I've built, everyone who expects me to be happy? That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in the hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, imagining all the ways I could confess, all the ways I could escape, all the ways I could be myself again. But every scenario ended the same. With me alone, heart pounding, and the silence of people who would hate me, or worse, pity me. I kept rolling over, hugging my pillow, whispering to myself that maybe, just maybe, I could survive this double life. But the panic didn't let me rest. I felt like a character in a dark comedy, forced to smile while everything around me threatens to collapse. The climax came the next morning. We were on the balcony again, breakfast trays between us, the ocean sparkling below. He reached for my hand and said, "I can't wait to spend forever with you. Are you excited?" And I froze. My mind went blank. I wanted to say the truth, wanted to scream, wanted to vanish into the waves below. But my lips formed the words, "Yes. I'm so excited." The sound of it in my own ears made me feel sick. He grinned, kissed my hand, and I felt the weight of 1,000 lies pressing down on me. In that moment, I realized that even though everyone else saw a happy, engaged woman, I was teetering on the edge of a personal apocalypse I might never recover from. After that weekend, everything changed subtly. I found myself laughing less at his jokes, dreaming more of escape routes, imagining what life would be like if I disappeared tomorrow. And yet, I stayed. I stayed because fear is stronger than courage, because the comfort of routine outweighs the terror of freedom. I stayed because telling the truth would hurt him in ways I couldn't bear to witness. And the worst part? Even as I write this now, I feel guilty for even imagining it, but I can't stop. Sometimes, late at night, I peek at the ring on my finger and imagine different futures. One where I tell him everything and face the consequences. One where I continue pretending, smiling for the world while dying inside. Both options terrify me equally. I have become a master of acting, a chameleon who can wear happiness like a costume, laugh at jokes I don't find funny, and nod at plans I secretly dread. So, strangers, this is my truth. I am engaged to a man I care about deeply, but I don't love him the way I should. I am trapped in a life that looks perfect from the outside but feels suffocating on the inside. I am terrified, guilty, and deeply alone, even when I'm holding someone's hand. And yet, I stay. If you were in my shoes, would you run, or would you stay? Things reached a breaking point a few weeks later, and I realized I couldn't keep pretending forever. I thought I could manage the double life, the one my fiancé saw, full of smiles and excitement, and the one I lived in secret, full of fear, guilt, and a gnawing sense of wrongness, but the pressure was becoming unbearable. Every interaction with him felt like walking a tightrope over a pit of lava. One wrong word, one flicker of doubt on my face, and everything would come crashing down. And maybe that's why it all started to spiral out of control. It began on a Friday night when he suggested we have a quiet dinner at home. Normally, that would have been lovely. But I had spent the entire week drowning in anxiety over seating charts, floral arrangements, and guest RSVPs. My mind was a mess, and instead of enjoying his presence, I felt suffocated. He cooked dinner, set the table with candles, and even poured wine into my glass with a tenderness that made my chest ache with guilt. I smiled and thanked him, but inside, my stomach twisted like a knot. I wanted to tell him everything, to shout, cry, and disappear, but the words stuck in my throat. Then came Emily. She texted me out of the blue, saying she was in town and wanted to meet. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to ignore her, to stay in the safety of my facade. But another part of me, a part one rarely acknowledge, wanted to breathe, even just for a few hours. So I lied to my fiancé, saying I had to meet a friend for a quick coffee. In reality, it became one of the most liberating and terrifying nights of my life. We met at a small, dimly lit bar, and for the first time in months, I felt like myself. I laughed without forcing it, I talked about dreams I hadn't shared with anyone, and I admitted things I had buried deep inside. My fear of marriage, my feeling of being trapped, and the crushing guilt that came with saying yes when I wanted to scream no. Emily listened quietly, nodding, her eyes soft but intense. "You're terrified," she said simply, "and that's okay. But you need to do something about it before it destroys you." Her words felt like a mirror reflecting my own soul, one I had avoided looking into for far too long. The climax of that night, and the moment I realized how far I was willing to go, came when she leaned closer and whispered, "You don't have to stay. You can leave. You can run." And for a terrifying, exhilarating second, I actually imagined it. I imagined walking out of the bar, leaving my phone behind, deleting all traces of my life, and disappearing into the night. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat, my hands shaking, my whole body buzzing with the thought of freedom. But the thought of facing the fallout, my family, my fiancé, everyone who trusted me, made my stomach twist with nausea. I felt like a coward, a villain, a girl betraying the one person who loved her unconditionally. By the time I got home, I was a mess. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. My hair was messy, my eyes puffy from laughing and crying, and the ring glinted cruelly on my finger. I wanted to rip it off, throw it across the room, and scream until I couldn't breathe. But I didn't. I put on a smile, brushed my hair, and walked into the living room as if nothing had happened. He greeted me with a hug and a kiss, oblivious to the storm raging inside me. I wanted to tell him, I wanted to spill everything, but instead, I whispered, "I had a great night with a friend." He nodded, smiling, and that was it. The truth remained buried, like a bomb I was too scared to defuse. The days that followed were a blur of panic attacks, forced smiles, and secret text messages to Emily, where we plotted hypothetical escapes and imagined alternate lives. I became obsessed with the idea of leaving, but at the same time, I couldn't face the idea of shattering the life I had promised him. I felt like a character in a tragic play, trapped in a role I didn't audition for, performing a script I didn't write. Every glance from him, every touch, every whispered "I love you" was a dagger. I loved him in the abstract, in theory, but I didn't love him the way he deserved. And that knowledge burned me from the inside out. Then, the unthinkable happened. During a quiet evening, while he was in the kitchen, I received a text meant for someone else. Someone Emily had sent to me accidentally. It was a message from a stranger she had met at a bar, someone I'd never met, saying, "Life's too short to pretend. Don't stay in a cage." That single sentence hit me like a thunderbolt. I realized that my life, as it was a cage, and I was the only one holding the door closed. My hands shook, my breath came in ragged gasps, and I knew that if I didn't act, I would wake up one day married, trapped, and hollow. But the terrifying part? I didn't act. I stayed. I kept smiling, nodding, and pretending everything was perfect. The fantasy of escape was intoxicating, but reality demanded courage I didn't have. And so I carried on, living in a constant state of tension, balancing between two lives, two truths, and a lie that was getting harder to maintain with every passing day. I started noticing little cracks in myself, nervous tics, restless nights, stomachaches that wouldn't go away. I realized that even if no one knew the truth yet, the lie was eating me alive from the inside. I was terrified that one day, the facade would crumble in front of everyone, and I would have no choice but to face the consequences. I would have to explain why I said yes when I meant no, why I stayed when I wanted to leave, and why I couldn't love him the way he deserved. And yet, here I am, still wearing the mask, still holding on to the life I desperately want to escape from. So, here's where I am. I am on the verge of a breaking point, trapped between fear and desire, love and guilt, honesty and the life I've carefully constructed. Every day is a delicate balancing act, and every smile, every "I love you," is a reminder of the lie I can't seem to escape. And the cruelest part? Even though I am suffocating inside, I can't stop playing the role. If you were me, would you confess and risk everything, or keep living the lie, pretending that happiness is real when it's not? By the time the final week before the wedding arrived, I felt like I was walking on the edge of a cliff without a safety net. The preparations were in full swing. Flowers ordered, invitations sent, cake flavors finalized, and every little detail reminded me that I was about to commit to a life I didn't want. Friends and family called constantly to check on plans, to gush about my happiness, to offer last-minute advice. Everyone was thrilled. Everyone except me. Inside, I was unraveling thread by thread, stitching a smile onto my face while my mind screamed in panic. One night, lying in bed beside him, I almost told him. I almost said, "I can't do this. I don't love you like you deserve. I'm scared, and I don't want to marry you." I felt the words on the tip of my tongue, heavy and real. His arm around me, steady and warm, made me pause. I felt his heartbeat, steady and calm, and I froze. Could I really destroy his world, the way mine had already started to feel destroyed? Could I betray the person who loved me with such pure certainty? I wanted to run. I wanted to disappear into the night, leaving behind everything that felt suffocating, leaving behind the life I had been forced to pretend to love. But the thought of his face crumbling, of my family's disappointment, of my own guilt, it paralyzed me. The days blurred into a routine of preparation and deceit. I smiled at florists, I nodded at planners, I practiced my happy fiancé face in the mirror, until my reflection seemed like a stranger. I even laughed at jokes I didn't find funny, just to convince myself that I could live this lie. But the truth was becoming harder and harder to contain. Every time I looked at the engagement ring on my finger, I felt a spike of panic. It had gone from being a symbol of love to a symbol of my cage. The spark of fear and guilt inside me burned brighter with every passing day, threatening to consume me entirely. Then came the final rehearsal dinner. Surrounded by family and close friends, I felt like I was performing on a stage, and every word, every laugh, every sip of wine was part of a script I hadn't written. People were talking about the ceremony, about vows, about future plans, and all I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. I imagined confessing right there, in front of everyone, and my stomach twisted. What if I did it? Could I survive the fallout? Could he forgive me? Could I forgive myself? The questions were endless, and the answers, terrifying. The climax of this chaos happened in the bathroom, of all places. I had run in to splash water on my face, trying to calm the storm inside me, and there I caught my reflection in the mirror. My eyes were red from crying, my hair mussed, and yet the ring on my finger shone mockingly in the fluorescent light. I touched it, and in that moment, I realized I was on the brink. The lie had grown too heavy, and I had been holding it together only by sheer will. The temptation to rip it off, to run, to scream the truth to the world, was almost unbearable. I could hear my own heartbeat echoing in the silence, and I knew something had to change, but I didn't know what. I returned to the rehearsal dinner, forced another smile, and laughed at another joke. Everyone congratulated me, told me how beautiful I looked, and I nodded, each compliment like a knife twisting deeper inside me. I felt hollow, fractured, and yet perfectly polished on the outside. The mask had become so real that even I could almost forget what I was hiding. Almost. Until I went to bed alone that night, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing with every possibility, every escape route, every confession I couldn't make. I began imagining a secret life, a world where I could vanish, where I could be myself without worrying about anyone else. I pictured leaving in the middle of the night, taking nothing but my own freedom, and the thrill of it made my heart race. But then guilt would crash back in like a tidal wave. Could I abandon him, someone who had trusted me completely? Could I betray my family, my friends, and the social world that had already written the story of my happiness? The internal tug-of-war left me dizzy, breathless, and trembling. And now, here I am, engaged, planning a wedding that I am terrified of, smiling for everyone, pretending to be thrilled, while inside, I am crumbling. I haven't told anyone. Not my fiancée, not my family, not Emily. Everyone thinks I am happy. But I am terrified that this facade is cracking. That any day now, one wrong word, one slip, and the truth will explode. And I don't know what will happen when it does. Will he be angry? Heartbroken? Will I feel relief? Or just a deeper, more crushing regret? The answers scare me more than the lie itself. I am stuck between fear and desire, love and honesty, safety and freedom. I don't know if I will ever have the courage to tell the truth. I don't know if I will ever have the strength to leave, even though part of me dreams of it every single day. And yet, I can't stop imagining it. Every glance at the ring, every smile I fake, every touch I force myself to enjoy is a reminder that I am living a life that isn't mine. So here's the truth I can't tell anyone else. I don't want to marry him. I'm terrified, guilty, and lost. And still I stay. I keep smiling. I keep pretending. I keep wearing the cage like a second skin. And the worst part? No one knows. Not a soul. My secret is mine alone, and every day, it gets heavier, sharper, closer to the moment when I might finally explode. So, I ask you, would you confess if you were me, knowing it could destroy everything? Or would you keep living the lie, smiling through the chaos, pretending that happiness is real when it's not?